We're taking Dean's Chat on the road, right? We're in July 24th to 27th. We'll be at the APMA meeting in the Dallas area, and we're going to be doing some Dean's Chats on location. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited. I heard that the Podiatry Expo, they're going to have a pickleball court. So I think that's going to be a fun kind of way to engage people and get them moving a little bit.
I heard Megan McClellan's training for that, actually, to take on, be on the
Well,
court.
I got to say, as soon as I heard that, I thought I need to maybe recruit your son to teach me some skills, because I think somebody might start challenging me, and I am not a pickleballer. I am not a sports person, period. And pickleball is going to be probably the answer of me breaking something.
Well, there you go. Well, I'm really looking forward to going to the APMA National, and we'll connect with friends and colleagues. And to all of our listeners out there, by all means, sign up and go to the APMA meeting in Dallas. And you can sign up on apma.org. /the national. And if you go to APMA, drop by, because Joe and I are going to be doing interviews, and we'd love to get some of our colleagues on Dean's Chat. We'll do a collage of different interviews. So my hat's off to APMA.
Please come say hello.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the co-host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my colleague and co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. It's getting a little warmer here in Arizona, so kind of preparing for that.
Yeah, but we haven't hit a triple digit yet. So I'm really psyched about that, because we're halfway through May, and we have not had a 3-digit day yet. So we're thrilled in our house.
There you go. Okay, we're talking. All right. Well, Joe, we've got a phenomenal guest today. Joining us from Michigan, Dr. John Evans. Dr. Evans, welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here with you.
I'm having some flashbacks to 30 years ago when we worked together, when I was a resident and you were attending at Kern Hospital. It's amazing that these things come together.
Yeah, it's been fun watching your career. You make me look good.
I was going to say the opposite, and so we're going to talk about all of that today. Dr. Evans, we're fairly informal on Dean's Chat. Is it okay with you if we go with John and Joe and Jeff?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a treat to kind of get to know you over the last couple months, I guess, since you and I first kind of met through LinkedIn initially, and then had the chance to work in person collaboratively on a couple different projects that we'll kind of get through the interview today. But to start the kind of intro, we're going to do a brief bio, and then we'll unwrap some of the depth of your career throughout the discussion. So Dr. Evans worked in private practice for over 30 years in Michigan, currently working doing medical consulting work. And you earned your bachelor's degree originally with a Bachelor's of Science in Pharmacy. I'm excited to get back to that real quick. But then you went on to complete your Doctorate of Podiatric Medicine at Temple University, which was previously the Pennsylvania College of Podiatric Medicine. You completed your 2-year surgical residency program at Highlands Center in Denver. But I would love to go back to the pharmacy part. How did you go from pharmacy to podiatry, and what was your podiatry origin story? How did you find this path?
Well, I knew nothing of podiatry until after I was out as a pharmacist for 2 years. I was going to be a clinical pharmacologist, an MD, PhD in pharmacology. That was my goal. And along the way, I had done research in undergrad. And after I graduated, I went to work in New Hampshire as a pharmacist. And I was running a pharmacy there. And I got a call from a fellow who I'd done research with at UConn. And he was my pharmacology professor. And he had left the university and had gone to a medical school in Cleveland that happened to be a podiatry college. And his name was Chipo Chen. And Dr. Chen called me and said, "Hey, what do you know about podiatry?" I said, "Nothing." I mean, in New Hampshire at that time, it really wasn't a big specialty. So he said, why don't you come down here and see the school and see what we're doing? And, maybe you'd want to do that instead of doing what you were planning on doing before. So I did. I went down and I visited him And then I went around New England and basically spent time with a lot of the doctors who were, well known then. And then decided at this point, I was getting old at that point. I think I was like 25, 26, that podiatry looked pretty cool. So, I applied to the different schools and ended up at Temple, PCPM then. And that's where this whole road started.
What was it about podiatry that really caught your passion or your interest?
It was it had a surgical base to it because all of my training was in medicine, and along the way I've always kept a strong interest in basic medicine and the different specialties, and especially when I got to pharmacology. But when I got to spend time with surgeons and seeing that that was pretty cool too, but a totally different skill set.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was just, as I say, I was getting older, and I started thinking about, 10 more years of training and education before I would actually get out and work as a clinical pharmacologist. So I figured, hey, let me go see what it's like. And at that time, Temple had a reputation of being a highly didactic school. And I liked that. I wanted the challenge. And the next thing you know, it's the second year and then the third year, and you're doing stuff and you're making friends, and it just kind of made sense. Why don't I give this a try? And then, I meet people like Jack McGarry, my residency partner. We were classmates for 4 years. And at that point, John Buchholz and Harold Vogler had come in to run the surgery department. And basically, they told us where we would go. You go here, you go there. And Buchholz told me to go to Denver, to the Highlands Center Hospital. Jack McGarry ended up being my partner, and we were there for 2 years. And then a whole bunch of people started coming who have gone on to have national prominence as educators and leaders. So I was just, it was just love. It wasn't like I made any really smart decision, but the next thing you know, you've been a podiatrist for 40 years.
John, I would say you're very humble, because if I remember correctly, in those days, Highlands Hospital was like one of the very, very top programs in the country. And you talk about Dr. McGarry, and I shared earlier, he did my mother's bunions and hammer toes back in the day. And I never forget, he asked me if I was going to assist him, and I said, absolutely not. She's moving into my house when you're done with the surgery, and I'll take care of her. So I've known Jack forever. He's such a wonderful human being.
I agree. The program was difficult. Of course, when you're there, you never know, because you're just working all the time. And when you're not working, you were playing. At that point, as a young man, it was fun staying up late and not sleeping a lot. But it was, I was just fortunate. The gods were with me along that trip.
So when you were done with the residency program, what stimulated the move back to the Detroit area?
Well, actually, it didn't.
Oh.
I had no desire to go to Michigan. When I was on the East Coast, there were a lot of University of Michigan graduates there. And I thought they all were jerks because we were from New England, and, we've got Harvard and Princeton and all that. But so I really wanted nothing to do with it. When I graduated, I went to work in Boston.
Okay.
At Cambridge Hospital, and helped run the residency there for a time, and where I got to know Lloyd Smith, and I was in Chicago for residency interviews because I went there, with Lloyd, and we we were interviewing residents from the Chicago school to come out to Cambridge Hospital to do that residency. Well, after the residency interviews, I was out on Rush Street and met a hot woman who actually was located in Michigan and had a corporation. She had taken her company out there for a perk for the weekend. And my days of bachelorhood ended.
I love it.
We sent letters to each other for a few months, and then she came out to visit. I came out there. The next thing I know, I'm moving to Michigan. So, and I've been here since. So, again,
I love that story.
It's another time when I just got lucky.
I think that's fabulous, Joe.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's like what a fabulous story, and it's not uncommon that we have heard the interesting interworkings of how people's lives play out, and something as simple as a chance meeting that changed your life, right, in the right place at the right time, and that's really beautiful, John.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
So John, as I was looking at your CV and interfacing with you over the years, I told Joe earlier today that your name is synonymous with service to the profession. All of your work that currently you're doing, past APMA work, ABFAS work, I mean, it's just incredible. And I was wondering if we could jump into that a little bit. Can you talk about, was it in your DNA to be involved? You've done so much, and these are all volunteer positions, and you just keep taking them on. I think it's phenomenal.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of us in healthcare, I've always thought of us as being cursed, because if we wanted money, we'd be picking another profession. You're out there to help people. And if I was going to be involved with something, I wanted to, if I could help, if I found some way I could help, and I thought it was important, I wanted to. And fortunately, I just found a way of being interested in things that otherwise, I might not have been. So again, it's kind of a matter of stumbling into things. I came to Michigan and happened to be in a study group with Mark Borovoy. Mark is a wonderful podiatrist, surgeon, excellent. And we had a study group for the surgical boards together. I got to know Mark, and then from him with Randy Kaplan. And before I knew it, I'm involved in the Michigan Podiatric Medical Association. And then the next thing I know, I'm on the board of directors for the local area and then the state. And, I have no idea, Jeff. Stuff just keeps happening. And the next thing you know, your Lloyd Smith's calling you saying, I'd like you to get involved with APMA, and then ABFAS called. It seemed that one of their board members was dropping off, and they wanted somebody to replace them on the board. So I'm on that, and then I think I've been thrown off of more committees than anybody I know. It just seems that when I'm, it's.
Or you graduated from them.
I was going to say, it's hard for me to believe that anyone would throw you off of anything, John. Let's, and it also reminds me of a quote that you often will say, Jeff, I think it's a Mark Twain quote: "The harder I work, the luckier I get." So I think that is probably more applicable here. There's a couple of things I would love to highlight real quick, because again, your CV, John, for the amount of dedication and professional service that you've done to the American Board of Foot and Ankle Surgeons alone is easily over a page. And so a couple of the things that you had briefly talked about, but you were on the board of directors for over 10 years. You're part of the residency review committee, the communications committee, board certification process, everything from oral boards to the case-based patient simulations, case review. You've had multiple examination committees, kind of helping be a field tester and question writer. I'm curious if you have a favorite out of all of these different projects or task forces. Has there been one that really lit you up?
Well, just to correct you,
Oh,
I was only on the board of directors for 8 years.
okay.
Because you can only be on it for 6 because you have to be reelected once. But for some reason, since I filled a position, they kept electing me. So, but anyway, from the board, I have to say every different committee I worked on had areas of interest. You know, that were small, you had a focus. But the thing that I love the most is that of all the work I've done with podiatry and all the people I've worked with, the working with the ABFAS has been really the greatest gift to me because of the people. Because these are people who are not looking for any accolades. They're not. It's a relatively quiet group, you know, as compared to some of the groups we have, which are quite possibly even political, or there's a lot of upfront or education and such. The board doesn't do any of that. They just work to try to evaluate if somebody has certain skills that protect the public. And so the people I've met through working with that over all these years, I found really are my closest friends. And this is, I think APMA is extremely important also, because the function on that has to do with governance of the whole profession, not just a special area, but dealing with all of us. And the areas that I work with mostly had to do with policy and practice. So that's how we get paid, was by working with CMS and with the government and representing the profession in that regard. So, I mean, these are the people I've met throughout all these activities. They've been a blast to work with. They're hardworking, they're intelligent. Egos are usually left at the door, especially with ABFAS, because if you start pulling an ego, you're going to get crushed, because there's so many people there who are so talented. So it's hard to say, Jeff. Either that, Joe, or my memory, I've lost it and I don't remember the things that were so much fun. But that's any answer at all.
I love
John,
that it's the people. Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead,
absolutely.
Jeff.
Well, to piggyback on that, who are some of your mentors that kind of showed you the way with the ABFAS and kind of, helped you to become the leader that you've become?
Well, early in my career, it was really people like John Buchholz, Harry Vogler, Don Green, Kieran Mahan. These are Paul Quinnavalli. These are people who helped lead me and point me in different directions. Then I just had the incredible luck to be partnered with Jack McGarrett, who is just an amazing individual. And I certainly, he helped me through difficult times of residency. And since he's always been there for that. So once you get into the board, there are so many people who are talented, because really they're, a lot of them are the leaders and the educators of the profession. So I've had the opportunity to work with and become friends with so many of these, literally, hundreds of doctors through that. And I'm just, again, it's hard to say, because it's enjoyable groups to work with.
I think that is so great. Well, let's shift gears over to APMA a little bit, and as humble as you are, I'm just going to talk about a couple of your accolades here. In 2017, you got the APMA Award of Excellence from the profession. You were so involved, like you said, in health policy and all the different areas that APMA advances our profession. I like the one you're on right now, Special Expert Podiatric Population Health Committee. I mean, the committees seem to have no end. There must be like a committee for committees, right?
Well, yeah, there are a bunch. There's a lot of ways to get involved with APMA, and I would certainly recommend all of your listeners to get involved with APMA or their state society, because we certainly need the help, because us old people, you got to start planning on us not being here and let some new leaders like Dr. Richey here,
Right.
who, can basically take the profession where it needs to go. So, but health policy and practice was a good committee. Again, a different group of people, but all of them were incredibly skilled and selfless, and were basically there to help the profession. And man, it's so wonderful to be around people like that, to work on these different projects.
That is so true. Joe, maybe we should do a little shout out to our sponsor.
I love it.
Did you know APMA provides help with public health initiatives such as fall prevention, opioid abuse prevention, and addressing health disparities?
Did you know the APMA provides over $400,000 in scholarships annually to students pursuing podiatric medicine, helping the next generation of foot and ankle specialists?
If you're serious about this profession, if you want to grow, to lead, to make a lasting impact, join APMA today.
I just don't want to move too quickly off of this Award of Excellence because it is a really big honor. The award itself, for the audience that maybe isn't as familiar, for outstanding national accomplishments in scientific, professional, and civic endeavors. And again, John, you are such a wonderful person to have received this award. And what I would love to hear is, what did it really mean for you to be a recipient of that?
Well, it was a surprise, not something that's expected, because immediately when I was notified of this, there were a dozen people who I thought deserved this more than I did. Because fortunately, I had a chance to work with a lot of people and saw just how amazing they are. So, I mean, I was kind of surprised, and I don't usually like to talk about myself. I basically, how I work is if I'm stimulated by something, I get involved with it. And then if there's something I can do, if there's an area that I feel I can be useful for, I go that way. So, and it was really nice and quite an honor, but, it was very nice to get it. It was a great week, and at the national or for that the House of Delegates meeting, I had a lot of fun. Got to see people, because I haven't been involved with the political end, like a lot of my colleagues are from Michigan, and who, being involved with APMA over all these years, I pretty much get to know all the presidents and all the board members now for 30 years. So it was nice to get to see people. So that was fun. And they treat you really nice. So it was fun. And I get to put that on my resume.
And, again, the reason I kind of wanted to call a little bit of attention to it, one of the things that is really fun about this show is the opportunity to highlight certain things about people in their career. And it is evident to me, having now had the chance to get to know you in person, you are a very humble person. You're not the kind that would come out and talk about this on your own behalf. And so I could stand here and talk about why I think this was the appropriate award and how awesome and exciting it is. But I also really love getting to ask the guests these questions about, what was this specifically for you? And again, we don't need to gush too much, but this idea of what does outstanding mean? And it's been interesting to talk to some people about excellence and what does excellence mean? And from every time I've had the opportunity to engage with you, John, the enthusiasm, the passion, the true love for what you're doing, but overarching is humility. And so again, I just think that it's really outstanding that was an award that was bestowed upon you. And so just wanted to pull a little bit of a Dean's Chat highlight for it. Now, Jeff, if you want to move on, we could transition to some of the multi-specialty stuff, if that was where you were going.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
All right.
So let's talk. I mean, there's one that stood up to me, that critical limb ischemia, the work
Yeah.
you've done with CLI. Do you mind talking about that and how you got involved? And it's even like playing into APMA initiatives, correct?
It has. We've been trying to work with it, and a lot of my work has been basically trying to liaise APMA with different organizations. About 10 years ago, I realized that at least I wasn't as versed in peripheral arterial disease and vascular disease as I should be, because I was doing a lot of wound care since about 2000. And I realized that, with the whole wound healing type theories and such, that still vascular was something that was kind of outside of what we were doing. Now, basically, because we don't do interventions or such like that. So I started spending some time with local vascular people around Michigan, and then started researching it. That's the other thing I like to do. I like to research things, not like bench research, but going through the literature, coming out with things, and then kind of taking from different specialties who we may not read their literature, but distilling out things that I think are important to us as lower extremity physicians, and also to primary care. Really need to know this stuff, but again, may not because they're busy with everything else. So I developed this interest, and so I started lecturing on it and doing different speaking groups and starting working with some of these different organizations. And APMA recognized this. And so in 2020, they asked me if I would be the representative to the American Heart Association and American College of Cardiology, because they were revising the peripheral arterial disease guidelines, but hadn't been updated since 2016. So they asked me if I would be the representative. And I said, fine, that's great. Be glad to. They said, it's probably going to be like a six month type project. You have a couple of meetings, and you come up with this, and it'll be great. 4 years later, we published the document. So for those 4 years, we were having weekly Zoom meetings for the first year, and then biweekly, and then monthly, and then all this through the following 3 years. And during this whole time, it's me and about 24 of the top vascular experts, surgeons, interventionists in the world are on this. So I'm thinking, there's a good chance I'm going to sink podiatry for everybody on this. So I just did what I could, but I learned so much from all these people. And the other thing I learned is all these other specialties look at us as being extremely important to what they do. Because basically, when people have a degree of ischemia that they actually need some sorts of treatment, they're done in the hospital or the OBL or the cath lab. But when the patient isn't in the hospital or the cath lab, podiatry is basically controlling how they're doing, because we're either increasing awareness of the disease process, we're identifying it, getting them into people who can do the different types of treatments, whether they're medical or surgical or interventional. And then when the patient leaves, podiatry takes over again. As long as this patient is walking, podiatry is part of their life. So, and if people have any degree of peripheral arterial disease, for the rest of their life, they need a podiatrist. And so there's a lot of research that's been done on this that I became aware of from doing, all this work over those years. So as my, certainly as I got older, my surgical practice was diminishing because I didn't feel I was as good as I could have been just as I got older. And, I was running a practice became harder. And with all the changes, then COVID hit, and all this. So last year, I sold my practice and then basically turned into doing what I've been doing as a hobby for the last 10 years, which is just doing research and teaching on peripheral and other vascular diseases. So a lot of the people I met along the way, I've gotten to know. And so the different groups, AMP, the Amputation Prevention Society, Symposium, SAWC, the New Cardiovascular Horizons, the Critical Limb Ischemia group, Dave Armstrong's group from the West Coast. I'm working with them and people who are really good, and because it's exciting, and I feel I can make a little bit of a mark in what time I have left without necessarily treating patients the way I had for the last 40 years. So that's what I do for fun now.
I think that's so great, because you look at the different groups in podiatry around the country. You could look at David and Dr. Mills and the Toe and Flow, or you go down to Upper Line and they're doing risk management and high risk population groups that include PVD and all the work with APMA. There's no doubt that podiatry is situated in such a way that we are a major player in that area, along with vascular, along with the interventionalists. Kudos to you for pushing that along also, because every time I'm seeing your name online and being involved, and all those meetings are so huge, and podiatry is central to those meetings, whether it's SAWC or Cardiovascular Horizons and things like that. So kudos to you. That's awesome.
Thanks, Jeff.
And it's another one of those opportunities to kind of, you had said, you're essentially acting as an ambassador to the profession. And anytime we have the opportunity to work with our colleagues, medicine is a team sport. Patients do better when we come together. Can you talk about why you think it's important? Again, these are big boards that you've worked in, American Heart Association, Peripheral Vascular Disease Council, American College of Cardiology. These are big professional organizations. What is it about collaboration and interdisciplinary approaches do you think is the most valuable?
Well, we have a lot of research now that looks at the benefit of having multidisciplinary treatments, really for anything. So, but my little splinter group has been within vascular, because most of the treatments that we have for people, we're not necessarily going to be doing them. We're not going to be doing bypasses or really any endovascular major treatments or such like this, or even medical therapies that involve anticoagulation and such. A lot of podiatrists would move away from it and try to find someone else who could initiate that type of therapy for medical legal reasons. But yet it still needs to be done. So we found that when the groups work together, we get the best results for patients. We find the economic benefits are there. Patients that have an involvement with a podiatrist before and after they develop a diabetic ulcer have a lower risk of amputation and morbidity and mortality. And also, we save the system money. So a lot of reasons why we need to work together. And one of the cool things is these other medical groups, the American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology, SVS, the Society of Interventional Radiologists, all of these groups recognize that podiatry is a key member of the group. And basically, when a patient needs treatment, during the treatment phase, for the most part, the medical group is controlling that therapy. But as soon as that's done, post-operatively, podiatry takes over, because they're the eyes on the ground. They're seeing these patients. And one of the problems is a lot of these treatments require an intervention, either amputation or bypass or some sort of endovascular procedure. For the rest of that patient's life, the risk of needing another procedure goes up 4 times after they've had the first one. So podiatry needs to be acutely aware of these patients, because it's not like our normal surgical group where a patient comes to us and I fuse an ankle. If it heals, it's fused. Yeah. For these vascular groups, it is not done. It's never, PAD is never truly fixed. At best, we can minimize it or it can get a little bit better, but for the rest of that patient's life, you're trying to keep them from losing their leg or dying. So, and podiatry is key to that, because as long as the patient is living their life, it usually involves some degree of walking. That's how we get around. And the only way we really get around well is with 2 legs and feet. And that's basically what podiatry does now. We are experts in walking, in keeping people walking, saving limbs, and working in that regard. And these are what the other professions can't do. And they're beginning to realize that when they do a successful intervention, that's not the end of the patient's life. It's just hopefully the start of the rest of their life. And that's where we come in.
That is so well said. Yeah. Gosh, John. Joe, can we pivot just a tinge?
Yeah.
So John, I noticed that one of the areas you discuss or you consult with is physician well-being. Do you mind talking about that just for a minute and highlight some of the challenges that physicians, podiatrists have in the medical community?
Well, again, this is something I got interested in about 10 years ago. And it was basically that I was asked to do a talk on communicating with patients, physician communication techniques. And in it, the research, a lot of it dovetailed with physician well-being. And I started at that point, I really didn't have any experience with burnout. But I saw it was a new thing on the horizon that they were measuring. And so I started focusing an area of research on burnout, physician burnout. So I started studying different psychological techniques, mindfulness-based stress reduction or cognitive behavior therapy, a whole bunch of different, acceptance and commitment therapy, all these things. I just started studying Buddhist, secular ideas, these things that really kind of just turned something on inside of me to look into and to realize that, since I'm basically a scientist, I want to know why these things happen. So next thing was looking into cognitive therapy, neuroscience, neurocognitive therapy, all this stuff, how the brain works. There's a lot of really cool stuff. And basically looking at that and then starting to take some to the conferences I was speaking at, putting together topics like this. And then burnout got worse and worse and worse. And then COVID hit, which was, nobody saw that coming, really. And that put a whole different load on a lot of people and took a load off for others, because some people backed away from practice at that point. Others were on the emergency line. They were keeping people alive and dealing with all that. So it's been an area that when I started with it, it really wasn't that accepted. And then it became more of a rational response to dealing with the pressures, really, of life in general. But physicians have their own group of problems, because you're not just responsible for yourself, you're responsible for the health of other people, of which you have very little control. Because patients are going to do, I'm sure your patients are great, but let's just say my patients always weren't. So finding ways of dealing with that uncertainty, and as a surgeon, it was even worse for me because, when you had a complication, I'm trying to figure out what did I do wrong? And when the answer is, I can't think of anything, the mind doesn't want to accept that. So you start looking for other things. And so fortunately, it's recognized now as being an issue. It has its own medical, it's got its own ICD-10 code now, or sort of one. And people realize that it is a pathology, and we all deal with it, at different times in our professional lives, but also in our own lives. Just living life today is where there are so many changes, there's so uncertainty, and you don't really know which way it's going to go. It causes a lot of internal psychosis. And so anyway, it's been an area that I've enjoyed studying and learning things I should do, and still, not necessarily doing it, but I have a pretty good idea what I should be doing.
The capital should.
Yeah.
Well, heightened awareness is kind of the first step in addressing things. And I think you've highlighted that, and it's being highlighted everywhere, of course.
I hope it stays that way, because, we only have one life that we know of right now. And, this being a physician to me is the greatest thing I could do. But it also has its difficulties. So we need to find ways of managing that. And hopefully the options are there for the people, our colleagues and friends and families.
Right. Well said. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, just having a conversation about it, right? Normalizing being able to talk about it, I think, has a huge impact in and of itself. And I'm not going to add anything else, because I loved that. That was a beautiful wrap it up statement about it's wonderful to be a physician.
I agree. John, a couple rapid fire questions. What do you do when you're not, excuse me, what do you do when you're not thinking about podiatric medicine and all the volunteer work you're doing?
Well, now, since I don't have to see patients every day, I get to hang out with my wife, which is really sweet. And I like to be outside. I'm a runner too, but only, maybe 4 miles every other day. I like to exercise a lot. Been studying Tai Chi for a while now. I enjoy that. Read, and a lot of the research I do, that's just fun. I just like reading articles and trying to figure out what if this is something that is important to us. So I'm living the dream right now. The winter in Michigan appears to be over, and Michigan's a great place for those 3 seasons. I never quite got used to winter, but so I'm just so lucky.
That's fabulous. John, I want to thank you for making time to visit with us on Dean's Chat today. And also, again, thank you for all of your service back to the profession, in addition to all the many thousands of patients you've treated, and to help them also. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been a real privilege to be able to be with both of you. You're both so impressive. You have been around for a long time, really as long as I have, for the most part. And Joe, I can just see that you're incredible. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me be here.
Thanks, John. We're going to send you one of these Dean's Chat mugs to kind of kick your day off every day, or in your beverage of choice. So be looking for that in the mail coming up.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating, or perhaps leave a comment. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Until next week, everybody, cheers.